Do you also have an SDK?
We do, yeah. We launched.
So that's like for other apps to embed bump functionality.
Yeah. So we launched the app in March, at the end of March 2009, and 2 weeks later we got an email from PayPal. And at the time, Jake and I were business school students, like scrambling to take our midterms, and here like PayPal wants to work with us, and we're like, oh crap, what should we do?
Yeah.
So we quickly built an SDK and API, and yeah, PayPal uses it now. 400 other companies use it. It's quite interesting for us.
And how does that fit into your broader strategy? I mean, do you want to be sort of a consumer-facing app, and you're also a sort of infrastructure?
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride. Early on, we thought, oh, this is great. We'll use the API to get distribution, right? Because no one's going to download our app, and we can kind of just embed it across the app ecosystem. As it turns out, our growth has been so rapid that our app just dwarfs any of these other apps that use our API. So our thinking in kind of the platform strategy.
But even like PayPal, or there's a certain special app they have. It's not like they're
just the main PayPal app. I mean, I think they have. I don't know the exact numbers now, but last time I checked, I think there were like 10 million installs maybe.
Okay.
So we have 6 times that. And our app is about bumping. The PayPal app is about PayPal, and it has a bump feature. So when we think about platform and what we might do in the future, it's more, is there anything interesting that we can put into bump?
So it's the other way around.
Yeah,
so like
it's
we
kind
put
of
PayPal into bump or something.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't done that.
Yeah, but for example,
that
maybe.
type of thing, sure.
And there's a lot of talk about NFC, was it near field communication, I think, which is, I guess, in theory, this new technology that I guess some Android phones have. iPhone was supposed to have it in the new one, but it didn't.
Supposed to, as in the press talked about it.
The press talked about it. And I guess it's sort of Bluetooth that sort of works, basically. So it's like basically
it's a proximity-based RF technology.
And people were saying, I've read some press reports, they were saying it's going to, it's a risk, it's going to kill bump or something,
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, because our system is a software system, if NFC is available and compatible across different phone platforms, we'll just use it as one of the inputs to our system. What we care about is the solution, not the technology. So we're trying to build, a user interface that is just really great and that you want to use. Whether we power it by the technology we've built so far or some new technology that comes along, we're pretty agnostic to that, honestly. But as it turns out, NFC is a hardware technology. There's tons of political issues about who owns it, who controls it. Does the OEM get any say? Does the carrier get any say?
Is it a proprietary technology that someone?
No, it's a standards body. It's an IEEE standards body,
so there's no, like,
which basically
licensing.
means it just takes a long time for anything to
everyone
happen.
to agree on everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if it goes the way of Bluetooth, it's going to not be very good for
Why
users.
does Bluetooth fail so badly? Why does it not work?
Because it was a standards body, and there's like 12 different manufacturers of the chip, and each one of them does it slightly differently, and the result is that it's not great. There's not one person that really cares about it. I have like
Apple devices that can't talk to Apple devices.
Yeah, it's terrible.
They must have the same chip.
They must.
You're an electrical engineer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that going to be the case with NFC too, you think?
I think it's a risk. I think it's definitely a risk. And the real question in my mind is, who's controlling it and what are their incentives? So say Apple puts it into a device in the future. Are they going to really work hard to make sure it works with the 300 different Android phones out there? Probably not, because they don't care. And so...
But like I have the Jambox, and like I'm always trying to pair that thing.
And it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know.
So we should build bump into the Jambox.
Yeah, I guess so you would just be able to pair without having to use...
Yeah, I mean, our whole thing is we should make technology easier for people, not harder. Yeah. So when we build something new, it should be easier than the previous solution, not more complicated.
Yeah. So let's talk about sort of building up the company. So you were in an enviable position in that you built an app that sort of very quickly became popular, and then you went to Y Combinator. That was after you'd already started?
Yeah, we had launched the app in March, and we applied to YC in April, and went out there in June and did Y Combinator. Yeah.
And then you raised money from, I guess, Sequoia. Now recently a big round from Andreessen.
That's right. Yeah, we raised the Sequoia round right at the end of Y Combinator. So we did a bridge note led by Ron Conway right at the end of YC, and then went and did fundraising and finished that up in October of 2009.
Was YC useful at that point? I mean, you already had a successful product.
Oh yeah, YC for us was great. I can't speak highly enough about it. We were a little atypical. We had launched our product. We had more than 1 million users, I think, before we even started YC. 2 of us were in business school, which is generally a big no-no for YC. Yeah. One of us, Andy's 10 years older.
They're allergic to MBAs.
Yeah. Well, in our YC interview, Paul Graham said, "Why aren't you going to go back to business school?" And if everything tanked, we probably would have, honestly, but we couldn't say that, obviously. So he said, no, we're totally into this, and worked out.
Good interview tip. Okay. And then in terms of like growing out, you're what, 30 people now, you said?
Yeah, we are. We have 30 people.
Is it mostly engineers, or?
Yeah, I think recently I was looking at who does stuff that creates bits that go into our product, and it's, I think, 20 of the 30 people are actually physically creating bits that go into the product. Yeah. And
you haven't yet focused on monetization, I guess. And I guess that's one of the nice things about being well funded is you have very patient. Very patient investors.
They see the long run and the big vision that we're trying to build, and so we have the luxury of making the product great before we go monetize.
And can you talk at all about what that long-term vision is?
The long-term
and how you'd make
thing that we want to do. And when we started Bump, the first thing we built was an example of this big problem. And the big problem is we've got these really amazing computers in our hands, but the user interface for them to use in the real world is pretty crippled. Like, there's a lot of time spent figuring out how I interface with this device to go access the virtual world, but nobody's really spent a lot of time thinking, well, I'm using this phone in the real world. What do I want to do in the real world? And how do I want to interact with other people and things in the real world? And that's the problem that we want to solve. We want to build that new UI layer for the real world.
And then you'd sort of, at some point, collect a toll?
Yeah, from someone, yes.
Okay.
Whether that's from the user.
Didn't you have like a bump station at like Best Buy or something? Or?
Not at Best Buy, but we've been experimenting with building Bump into things that aren't mobile phones. Okay. And we're working on that.
So that's like a monetization thing, is if you bump the product or something.
Certainly, there's a lot of ways you can imagine monetizing.
You're being cagey now, so you can't talk about that. Okay. All right, I won't. So in terms of, this is your first startup, so like what have been your what are the sort of biggest lessons you've learned so far, or advice you give to fledgling entrepreneurs?
There's so much. It's been an amazing ride. I think the biggest lesson is that it's a roller coaster, and they tell you this. Like you sit the first day of Y Combinator, and some famous entrepreneur comes in and says it's going to be a roller coaster. Strap in, get ready, and you're like, okay, yeah, sure. But it really is. I mean, there are definitely days where I'm like, wow, we are just killing it. This is awesome. And then 18 hours later, like someone says something or we get some new information and we're like, oh man, we're totally screwed. And usually the answer is somewhere in the middle.
But I would think with you guys, you've had pretty steady success, so there wouldn't be as much of a roller coaster, but
it is. Your entire life is like put into this product, and you get really critical of yourself. I mean, we sit around and say, oh man, this retention metric that we're looking at, it like went down this month. Like, what's wrong? We're really screwed.
I see.
And if you step back a minute, you're like, no, we're doing okay.
Yeah.